the Jayda InStitches show, and welcome to the Victorian parlor. It's October, which means it's not only time for the next installment in our 2018 calendar blanket, the Victorian Stitch Sampler. It also means that Halloween is coming. So we have an especially spooky stitch for you this month. We're going to learn Cobwebs. Cobwebs is lacy, loopy, and very spooky. It would make a beautiful wrap or shawl, all done in black, and it's a very fitting 10th stitch for our 2018 calendar blanket. You're still using the same kind of yarn and the same size hook for this stitch that we've been using all along throughout the rest of our blanket, but this particular stitch, even though it's also 9 rows, is much wider than last month's stitch on account of its loopy, stretchy nature. So let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up the October Cobwebs stitch together. In order to add the next stitch to our calendar blanket, you're going to want to have a little bit of yarn for your divider row in your divider row color, so that one right there. And I'm back to blue again. My last stitch was brown, so I'm back into blue. Make sure whatever yarn you're using is the same fiber and weight as the rest of your blanket. I'm using in a medium worsted weight size 4 acrylic yarn. You need about 100 grams of the actual stitch color. You need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and today's hook is the same one we've been using. It's a 5.5 millimeter or an I9 in the US or a 5 in the UK. You need your blanket, and once you've got all that together, we can get started. Take your divider color row. You're going to begin with a slip knot. And we're going to join our yarn with a slip stitch in the top of the last stitch from the previous row of our waffle stitch. So find the top of that last stitch, and we're going to join with a slip stitch. Chain 3, this counts as a double crochet. You're going to skip 1 stitch, find the third or the next stitch in that row, and you're going to work 2 double crochet into it. So chain 3 to begin, skip 1 stitch, work 2 double crochet into the next stitch, and from here on across, you're going to work 3 double crochet into every third stitch. So skip 2 stitches, find the third, work 3 double crochet in it. So 3 double crochet stitches worked into every third stitch. You're going to work that all the way across until you get to the last 3 stitches from the previous row, and I'll catch up with you there. After you've worked 3 double crochet into every third stitch all the way across, you should be up to 117 stitches, including the chain 3. That leaves us with 3 stitches left, so 2 stitches and the chain 3 from the previous row. We're going to skip 1 stitch, work 2 double crochet into the second last stitch of this row, and then we're going to finish with 1 double crochet in the top of the turning chain. Count them up, including your chain 3. You should have 120 stitches all the way across. You can fasten off and weave in your ends. We're going to begin with a slip knot with our pattern stitch color now. Make sure your blanket is facing you so that you're going to join your yarn in the top of the last double crochet you worked in your divider row. So you flipped your blanket. We're going to join our yarn with a slip stitch in the top of that last stitch from the divider row, and we're going to chain 3. A chain 3 at the beginning of a row does count as a double crochet for this stitch pattern. Into the very next stitch, now remember this is the establishing row of the pattern, so it's going to look a little different than the rest of the rows. Into the very next stitch, you're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, and another double crochet all into the same stitch. Now we're going to chain 5. So nice chain of 5. Skip 1 stitch and double crochet into the next stitch. Alright, so let's recap. We chained 3, into the very next stitch we worked double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. We chained 5, skipped 1 stitch, and then double crocheted into the next stitch. So hopefully you're with me so far. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches. Find the 4th, and we're going to start this odd little thing all over again. We're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that 4th stitch, chain 5, 5 chains, skip 1 and double crochet into the next stitch. That is the little repeating pattern that you're going to work all the way across. It is odd, but we're making cobwebs, so it should be big and lacy and loopy, and that's what it's going to look like so far. We're going to do one more together. So you skip 3 stitches, find the 4th, work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that same stitch. So it's sort of like an old V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that stitch. So it's the 4th stitch away from the last motif. Chain 5, skip 1 stitch, find the next one, and work a double crochet into it. So that gives you this really strange motif, kind of like a hopping giant spaces. This is what it should look like. So you start with a chain 3, you work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the very next stitch, chain 5, skip 1, double crochet, skip 3, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 5, skip 1, double crochet, chain 3, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 5, skip 1, double crochet into the next stitch. So that's the little repeater that you're going to work all the way across, and I'm going to catch up with you close to the end. Once you've worked that base motif across your foundation row, so it's that little double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, skip 1, double crochet in the next. So it's a very strange, and these are all separated by 3 stitches each. So you get all the way across, you should have a double crochet and the chain 3 left behind from the previous row. So you're just going to finish your last motif. So you've skipped 3, you've worked double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 5, skip 1, double crochet, skip 1 stitch, and into the top of that turning chain you're just going to double crochet. And that is the pattern foundation row for our cobwebs. It's a very big, lacy, a little bit strange looking, but it's going to take off once we get into a couple more rows. We're going to chain 3 to begin and turn our work. Even rows, or row 2s, always start a little differently. Kind of think of them as sort of starting backwards, or you're reversing the pattern stitch going the other way. So you've chained 3 to begin, you've turned, you're going to look for that big chain 5 that we did in the last row. It's the last chain 5 that you made before you finished. Into that chain 5 space, you're going to work a double crochet, so right into the space, chain 5, and double crochet all into that chain 5 space. So that's how an even row begins. And everything from here on out looks a lot more familiar. you're going to hop over to the next chain 5 space. So it's really easy. You're just looking for the big chain 5 spaces you made. So you skip over all of this little stuff in between. Find the big chain 5 space, and you're going to work the familiar double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. This is all into the chain 5 space, chain 5, and double crochet, still into that chain 5 space from the previous row. So you're going to work that familiar motif into every chain 5 space across. So you just ignore all the stuff in between. Look for the next chain 5 space. So here it is here. And you work that big repeating motif into it. So it's a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. That's the first part of the motif. It's worked into that chain 5 space. Chain 5, and then work a double crochet into the same chain 5 space. So you're just looking for the chain 5 spaces all the way across. You're working that motif, which is double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, double crochet, all into the same chain 5 space, and you're going to get a very cobwebby looking pattern emerging very quickly. So repeat that all the way across, and I will catch up with you near the end of row 2. Once you've worked that repeating motif into every chain 5 space all the way across, it should look something like this now. You've worked your last motif into the last chain 5 space. That leaves you with that little double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and the turning chains from the previous row. Finish your motif in the last chain 5 space and into the top of the turning chains. So if you have to spin it around to find it, you're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So you're going to finish every row 2, so every even row finishes with a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the top of the turning chain. So that's after you finished your last motif in the big chain 5 space. So that is how every row 2 finishes. Kind of neat looking so far, eh? All right, we're going to chain 3 to begin. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet at the beginning of every row. This is an odd row. We're going to flip our work. Row 3 and every odd row from here on out begins with you chaining 3, turning your work, looking for that first big chain 5 space, and working a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, double crochet, all into that same chain 5 space. And that's all you have to do all the way across. Look for the next chain 5 space. Here it is here. So you're going backwards now. Chain 5 space and work that strange motif into it. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, double crochet, all into the same big chain 5 space. And that's all you have to do all the way across for the odd row. I will catch up with you at the end of row 3 or the odd row. Look at that crazy cobweb. Repeat that little motif into every big chain 5 space, and I'll see you at the end of row 3. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. At the end of row 3, you should have something shaping up to look like this. It's very cobwebby indeed. You've worked that interesting little repeater motif into every chain 5 space all the way across. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, double crochet. After you've worked it into your last chain 5 space, you're going to find the chain 3 turning chain from the previous row, and you're going to work a double crochet into the top of it. So that's how row 3 and every odd row finishes at sort of every odd row, finishes with a full motif into the chain 5 space, and then just simply a double crochet in the top of the turning chain. And that is it. All you need to do is repeat rows 2 and 3 from here on out. We're going to do 9 rows in total, so we're definitely going to make up for some height. Last month's stitch, the waffle stitch, was very condensed and small. And so here we are 3 rows in, and we're almost the entire height of last month's stitch. So just to get you started, an even row or a row 2 begins with a chain 3. Every row begins with a chain 3, and we flip our work. At the beginning of every even row, it's a little bit backwards. You find that first chain 5 space, and you're only going to work the back half of the big motif into it. So you're going to double crochet. It's like you're splitting up the motif. Double crochet, chain 5, and then double crochet into that big chain 5 space. That's the first space you come to when you start a row 2 or an even row. So you begin with just that slightly odd thing because you're going to end every even row with a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the top of the turning chain. But from here on out, you just find the next big chain 5 space and you work the regular motif. So double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, and double crochet all into that big chain 5 space. You're going to work that all the way across every single big chain 5 space all the way to the end. You're going to work that motif into your last chain 5 space, so that'll be this big guy right here. And you're going to find, so it looks a little funny, so there's a chain 5. Remember, you're looking at it going backwards, so that's the last place you'll work your final motif into. There's the double crochet, chain 2, double crochet from the previous row. There's the chain 3 that we started with. It's into the top of this turning chain. You're going to work double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. That's how every even row or row 2 ends. I'm going to turn you loose. You're going to repeat rows 2, 3, 2, 3, or even odd, all the way up until we get to row 9. We are going to have some real height on this cobweb. And I'll catch up with you there. I'm just working along row 7, and I wanted to stop and mention a couple things. So if you're counting, and it does get a little funny when you're trying to count, you want to make sure you have 20 chain 5 spaces in every row. So no matter how you start with that sort of split motif in a row 2 or a regular motif in a row 3, every row will have 20 chain 5 spaces, so the big ones. The way to count which row you're on is to take a look at the edge. So we started, there's a double crochet or a chain 3, double crochet, chain 3, double crochet, chain 3. You know that a row either begins or ends with a double crochet or a chain 3. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can see that I'm on 7. If you get to the end of a row and you're kind of confused about where to work your last stitches, you can do the same thing. So here's the other side. I would find there's a double crochet, chain 3, and I would just sort of work my way up until I got to the top. So that's a double crochet, there's a chain 3, this is a chain 5 space. So I know that this is not part of the end. This little chain 3 is the actual end of the row, so it's into the top of that I would work my last stitch. So if you're ever a bit lost when you get to the end, just look up the edge and find the double crochets or the chain 3s. You will only ever have a chain 3 existing at the edge of your work, not in the middle. So if that helps, I hope it does. If you find that getting to the end is a little confusing, like I said, I'm a bit way through row 7. This is how it's shaping up. It definitely looks cobwebby. This would make such a neat wrap, especially done in black. Ooh, that's fancy. All right, guys, I'm going to finish row 7s, 8, and 9, and I'll see you then. Once you've finished row 9, your new stitch should measure approximately 15 centimeters or 6 inches tall by 40 inches or 100 centimeters wide. Now it's very stretchy, so our measurements may vary a little bit. It's perfectly all right, but you do want to have at least 9 rows. We are making up for some of the height of our previous stitch, the waffle stitch pattern. But there you have it. That is so cobwebby. I love that strange little off-centered webby bit that it looks like. It's I just think this would make the prettiest wrap, and I just love how stretchy it is. So once you've finished row 9, we're going to just fasten off. You should have ended with row 9 being an odd row, so you'd finish a full motif, which is a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 5, double crochet into that last chain 5 space, and then found the top of the chain 3 from the previous row and double crocheted into the top of it. So once again, an easy way to count your rows is to just look at the edge. So you've got like a double crochet, a chain 3, a double crochet, a chain 3, and you should be able to count up 9 edges all the way to the top. Snip your yarn. You can fasten off. And take a moment to weave in your tail with your yarn needle. You might want to be sort of creative with this. So just find stitches anywhere you can. And remember to weave your tail back and forth a few times, at least 3 times. Try not to pull anything out of alignment. So once you've yanked it all the way through, pull it back a bit just so you're not changing sort of the edging of your stitch here. And then just work back and forth a few times until you are assured that your little tail is not going to come out. And there you have it, the very spooky, lacy, loopy Cobwebs stitch. I hope you enjoyed stitching this month's Stitch Up with us, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye!